insert a new sentence which reads, educational institutions do not have the ability or means to properly investigate sexual assault. Is that your words?
Correct, and this comes from many of the current situations with college athletics. Example, Baylor. Not only was that an absolute debacle, but also one of the players that most people don't know about was then brought back into the office because they did not want the situation to go out into media, so they released him from his scholarship also and was sent to junior college. So my whole thing is there's no reason why any educational institution, from the president to the football coach to anybody, should be investigating any of this.
Let's see. What's on the screen is not the part we're talking about. It's the addition of that line at the end of page 6, line 5. Yeah, we just want to blow that up there with everything that you have there in the grayed-in area. If we could just, and then that line that you're just highlighting there, if we can make that bigger, that's the additional line that we have from the delegate from American Samoa. It said educational institutions do not have the ability or the means to properly investigate sexual assault. That's an accurate reflection of what you're proposing.
That is correct.
Good. And it has been moved and seconded. The delegate from North Dakota.
Mr. Chairman, the word property should be changed to properly. Thank you.
You're going to get the award for the best finds of the day. This is the second time. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. We're going to put her in charge of all the money, too. This is terrific. Additional discussion. Yes, sir. The delegate from Massachusetts.
Bob McGinn from Massachusetts. I'm also going to offer an amendment following on this section. I've spent quite a bit of time with members of Congress, Senators Ayotte, Rubio, and others on the topic of sexual assault, the legislation that's being considered by and proposed by Republicans in the Senate as well as the House. And some facts that just need to be understood here is that probably about 3% of the people commit 90% of the sexual assaults on campus. And the idea that these can be only dealt with in the courts fails to recognize that a college career may last only 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, depending on how long the person is there. The ability to move those cases through the criminal courts is not feasible. It's also a standard of beyond reasonable doubt, which is more than is necessary for an educational institution that has both contractual rights with students as well as legal rights to enforce conduct and behavior on their campuses that's appropriate. So the idea of taking that right away from them, which flies in the face of the very first sentence, which says that we commend their efforts, we commend the good faith efforts of educational institutions to properly address these crimes in a responsible way, and then to turn around in the next sentences, including this addition, and remove their ability to do that is wrong. And it's also, for those that have been talking about this being a marketing document, for the idea that we're going to put in ways to make it possible for these sexual predators, the 3% that commit 90% of the crimes, to continue to stay on campus is a really bad idea, particularly whether you believe the polls or not, when we have a massive gap with women right now for the election. And it's also not something that would be supported by many of our leading people running for re-election like Ayotte and Rubio. So I not only oppose this, I'm going to be making an amendment to strike lines 4 to 7, including this piece as well.
And your amendment is up next after we deal with this amendment. The delegate from California.
Noelle Irwin Henschel from California. Thank you. From our experience in California, date rape is very, very rampant. It's not only in our schools, but it's also in our amongst people that know each other, friends. There's a recent case in Santa Monica where it was a best friend for 3 years, and it happened to be that 3 girls saw the boy put the drug into the girl's drink and reported him to the waiters, and he was arrested. But it's because of, I think we just need language that would say that we strongly condemn as a party date rape. And then when you speak to the Rape Foundation, you find out that the women are always like the victims. They're treated like they blame themselves somehow. So also rape counseling, because they almost never recover from this. And so the more that we can show as a party that we do care about young women and their safety, I think that would be positive.
Delegate from Florida.
The recent Title IX cases that have come before, and also in my state of Florida, indicate the inability of universities, which is the problem here, covering up for certain superstar athletes. Obviously, the universities, especially when you're talking about a state-run university, falls under the purview of our governor's office and all the other places, and that is where law enforcement, not individual history teachers or whatever, need to be enforcing the laws just like they enforce the laws in every other public venue in our state. The problem with Title IX especially, as it's brought up here, is that the women don't get a fair shake. We need to at least take some parts of this platform and push forth a new idea of empowering women in the United States of America, and there's been enough problems with Title IX that we could take a stance on this, I believe. Thank you.
Delegate from Virginia.
Yes, as the delegate pointed out, that there's a disconnect between commending the good faith efforts by educational institutions and the amendment or the motions that are being made. I would say the problem is that we should not be commending educational institutions who have proven to not be effective in this. They have a conflict of interest because of wanting to present a safe campus and not allow these rapes and assaults to actively be documented. And just because these actions are happening on a campus does not mean that they are outside of the jurisdiction and purview of civil government and law enforcement. So I don't see that there's any reason to allow them a way of escape from the regular type of law enforcement that any other person would be under.
Delegate from Massachusetts.
Yes, I think that there's some confusion about either or. This is not an either or, it's an and. Yes, of course, the courts should prosecute these things. People who have committed sexual assault and rape, these horrific crimes, should be prosecuted. But it doesn't. But that takes a long time. That has a high standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. O.J. Simpson was not convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. He was only convicted on a lower standard. So the universities and the colleges, while they have not done an extremely good job historically, are now under pressure. They're under the microscope, and they are moving to address this more aggressively. We should be pushing them to do the right thing, and the right thing for them is that they can act faster. Doesn't take years. When a person only has 3 or 4 years on a campus, it could take that long to get through the court system. They can act faster, and they can act with a lower standard. And I've talked with the Title IX officers at major universities. They know who many of these people are that are the ones that, the 3% that commit 90% of these sexual assaults, and they are empowered by the current way things are. So it's not changing the way things are. They're empowered to go ahead and take action and expel, suspend, or cause them not to be in the same classes, to take different kinds of actions that don't require them to put people in jail, but just to protect the women on their campuses. We would be doing a massive disservice to our party to say that we are against that.
Delegate from North Carolina.
Yes, sir, thank you. I think we ought to put, I'll say 2 words that will put this into perspective. I think we ought to be looking at Duke lacrosse. If they're so well equipped to handle the problems, why did Duke lacrosse team get to be such high visibility? It was rushed to judgment because the people are not well equipped and they do have a conflict of interest to protect. I think it has to go to the courts, no matter how long it takes to get justice. Thank you.
Delegate from Alaska.
Judy Elledge from Alaska. Call a question, please.
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor of voting is there a second? Yeah. All those in favor of voting immediately, please signify by saying aye. No? Any noes? Okay, now it's on amendment from the delegate from the American Samoa. In fact, as stated on the screen, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment is defeated. Next to the delegate from Massachusetts with his amendment to page 6, line 4.
Yes, if you have it up there, I'm going to propose that we strike the inconsistent line 4 to 7, where it reads, right after saying that we commend them, whenever reported, it must be promptly investigated by civil authorities and prosecuted in a courtroom, not a faculty lounge. And then continues, questions of guilt or innocence must be decided by a judge and a jury with guilt determined beyond a reasonable doubt. I would strike that and instead insert, we respect the legal and contractual rights of colleges and universities to enforce appropriate conduct and behavior on their campuses, including addressing the problem of sexual assault. Colleges and universities should be encouraged to use the courts to prosecute these crimes. So, as I said earlier, it's not either or. Both should be done. And if there's clear evidence that someone is a perpetrator, then they should be empowered to take action. And I will remind ourselves again that this is simply leaving things the way they are and is not trying to come out opposed to actions that would protect women on campuses. So I would strongly recommend that we strike the language and replace it with this new language.
And the screen reflects everything that you've said. It crosses out the things that you want crossed out, and it adds the new language that you've recommended. The delegate from Iowa.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Tamara Scott. I want to make sure I'm clear on this, but what you're saying, it sounds like to me you're saying that colleges could decide whether or not, you know, we have headlines full of women who have been raped, who have feared for years to come forward and tell the truth about it because they don't even want to go to their own school faculty and explain what happened. There's definitely a conflict of interest in schools investigating when it's sports members of teams that make them great money. We have headlines of women 16 years back who are just now coming forward because when they tried and the rape kit was processed, it was hidden, even through the judicial system or the outside the regular system of law enforcement, in order to work with a school in a community. The victims are up against every issue here, and I really find it curious. Most colleges don't allow their security forces to carry weapons. There's a reason, and if they don't trust them with the weapon and justice in an emergency situation, why do we think that they can proclaim and define and investigate the case on their own as well? I think that the courts, I don't think colleges should get to decide whether or not or how something is turned over. A crime is a crime.
Delegate from Minnesota.
I'm not a lawyer. I think the very first half of this up to the word behavior, that's a nice thing. I think that's a good thing that they, the rest of it, and putting assault in quotations, I don't know. I'm a man, so maybe it's not my place to say, but I'm kind of, that offends me, that we're saying assault with air quotes, that we're not taking sexual assault and these types of things seriously. We cannot put this in the platform. I will vote no on...
The air quotes were not part of mine. I didn't see that. You can take those off.
Okay, yeah, because the handwritten part, I see there's a, all right, there's a quotation mark on here, so that's why they typed it in.
Well, to go on, I don't think we should just encourage colleges and universities to use the courts to prosecute sexual assault. We should require it.
I would accept that second part to my amendment that college universities should be required to use the courts to prosecute these crimes. And to Tamara's point, maybe also if what you're suggesting is that the first part, instead of just saying respect, also could say require them, because if they weren't doing it, the legislation that is moving through the House and Senate will require them to do it, and they're probably required under current law anyway to do it if they're not. If those friendly amendments, if those are friendly amendments, I would accept them.
So there's a second-degree amendment that makes two changes. To the word respect, is change that to require.
I would not want mine considered friendly.
Okay, well, the amendment that he has suggested that he would accept is that could change respect to require in that location, as well as at the end where it changes the word encourage to required. Is that a correct reflection of the two recommendations from you that have been accepted as the author as improving?
I believe that's correct. If we could read the first sentence, does it read correctly?
We require the legal and contractual rights of colleges and universities to enforce appropriate conduct and behavior of their campuses, including addressing the problem of sexual assault. That's how that would...
I don't think that reads correctly. I think we need to say we require colleges and universities to use their legal and contractual rights to enforce appropriate conduct. So we would need to relocate those words.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the delegate from Minnesota who's in the middle of proposing an amendment to the amendment on the floor.
I just want to be clear. I'm not trying to fix this for passage. I oppose this from the beginning. If the author is amending it, that's on his own. I will be voting no on this.
Okay.
All right, but I'll still accept the idea of amending it as now stated.
The delegate from Kansas.
Chris Kobach from Kansas. I think the existing language in the unamended text is fine, and I oppose the amendment. Now we've got two sentences that are somewhat contradictory. Using contractual rights means I have a contractual right to kick you out, student. And then in the next sentence it says, but we want you to use the courts. Furthermore, the second sentence is sort of legally problematic. The colleges don't use the courts. The prosecutor, the DA, uses the courts. So okay. I just think it's problematic for a variety of reasons. We should just stick with the original language.
The amendment on the floor is the amendment as originally typed because the delegate from Minnesota did not offer a specific amendment to the delegate from Massachusetts, the amendment on the floor. So we're debating the amendment on the floor, which is first we respect and in the end is encourage. The word, yes, the delegate from Hawaii.
As a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, I oppose this amendment. A crime is a crime. And if there was a rape or sexual assault, it needs to be immediately reported and not covered up. That was the problem with the church. They didn't cover it up. They moved one guy to the next guy and claiming this and that. If it was reported, it needs to be reported immediately and prosecuted. What the colleges do about it is, who knows, one thing or another, and then put it up on Facebook and the internet that this is what's happening at the colleges.
Delegate from Texas.
David Barton, just to remind us about the 30,000-foot view, we hold the constitutional position there's 17 enumerated powers to the federal government. Everything else belongs to the state under the 10th. This is both police powers and education. We would normally hold that these are not federally touched issues, and the fact that we use the word require with the federally touched issues that are not enumerated seems to be contrary to our core philosophy.
Delegate from Ohio.
Yes, Dave Johnson from Ohio. With all due respect, we are getting so far astray from the fundamental principles and the guiding principles of a platform. I will be opposing this and all these other strenuous amendments. Goodness gracious, how do you explain this? It's self-evident. We all want to prosecute criminals. It doesn't belong here.
Delegate from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tommy Valentine from Virginia. I echo the concerns of others. I think require is a much better word than encourage, but it doesn't salvage this amendment. The first sentence especially makes it sound like sexual assault is a matter that can be settled on campus. It can't be. It must be prosecuted. I think the original language is much better, and I oppose this amendment.
Delegate from South Carolina. The question has been called. Is there a second? All those in favor of voting immediately, please say aye. Aye. No? Nay? We'll vote immediately. All those in favor of the amendment from the delegate from Massachusetts, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment is defeated. Next, we have